indulgence here in the next half hour, because we're going to take you on a tour here in Vets in Des Moines, Iowa. And we'd like to have your indulgence here in the next half hour, because we're going to take you on a tour here in Vets Auditorium, where you're going to be able to see over $5 million worth of customized automobiles. And it's the annual Ray Farhner Custom Auto Show. And with me today to take us on that tour is Roger Kilborn, who is the show chairman of Ray Farhner's Custom Auto Show. And Roger, what possesses people to customize their automobiles?
Well, Dick, Americans are extremely inventive people, and we didn't get to be the most mechanized country in the world for nothing. You hand the average mechanically inclined individual a very complex piece of machinery like an automobile, and he's going to start tinkering with it. And what we'll see in just a few minutes will be the result of a lot of that tinkering, customizing and individualizing these cars to suit the individual's own idea of what the ideal car should be.
Might want to mention before we get started, like I aforementioned, we have over $5 million worth of customized automobiles. And when Ray Farhner started, which was back in
1961, I believe.
That's right. And he started here at Vets Auditorium on the lower level with 35 cars. And I think the attendance was in the neighborhood of 8,500 people. Right. Today it's grown to?
We're expecting right close to 30,000 today.
And we have over how many units here today?
The last count, I think, was upwards of 170 units.
Okay. Why don't you and I get up? We'll go to our first automobile, and you'll be our tour guide.
Great.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Roger, we're going to pick it up right here with a 1969 Oldsmobile, and this is owned by?
This is owned by Herb Hoffman of St. Louis, Dick.
You know, I understand that this car has, what, 23 coats of lacquer on it?
23 coats of lacquer, which also includes some crushed glass in the last few coats to give a little extra sparkle.
Okay, give us a little more information about the car.
Well, this car has been extensively customized. The door handles have been removed and some custom buttons installed, so that makes it a little more smoother on the side. There's been a great deal of work done to the underside of the car, such as cleanup, and it's just about as shiny underneath as it is on top.
Give me somewhat of an idea, and also our viewing audience. You take a car like this and you start pretty basically from scratch, right?
This is true.
And about how long, if a guy, say, works continually at this, how long would it take him to get the finished product like it is now?
Well, to tell you the truth, Dick, very few car owners will talk about their car being finished, because they would, if once you say the car is finished, that takes all the challenge out of it.
So it's really never finished?
They're never finished. That's the idea.
Okay, let's say that this car is finished. What would the price tag on this be if you were to buy it today? And I guess it is for sale.
He has a price tag of $7,000 on the car as it sits. However, to duplicate the car would probably easily run twice that.
Shall we write out a check or what? Or would he take cash?
On your account, Dick.
1969 Oldsmobile, owned by Herb Hoffman of Des Moines. Okay, Roger, I guess in every custom auto show, there's always your favorite. And we're standing right now by my favorite car, and I've been all through the auto show. This is my favorite. Actually, as you folks view this car, this was once a 1981 Corvette, right?
That's right. It was right out of the box. And this car was delivered to a customizer who whacked off everything out of the body except the cowl and the doors. Everything else has been replaced, and we have a very, very unique car. This is a limited edition. There will be 500 of these cars built, and that's it. This is number 31.
I was going to say that, thanks. Number 31. And this car would be worth about neighborhood of $50,000 right now.
Right, very close neighborhood, yes.
And we have the owner standing right behind the car. He's working on it, and I guess, you know, the thing with the custom auto shows is the fact that during the show, if they see a speck of dust on, boy, they're right there to wipe it off, right?
That's right.
Take a lot of pride in their automobiles.
That's true.
And so this was a 1961 or 81 Corvette, and it's now, what's it called?
This is a Berlinetta. That's
a Berlinetta.
Yeah, that's the name of it.
And the owner is Arlen Banning, who owns Park Realty here in Des Moines, Iowa, and he owns a slug of them.
He's a pretty well-known car fancier in the town here.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Roger. Here's another one of my favorites. I think before we're done with this half-hour show, every one of these cars will be my favorite. Give me the definition of a true classic.
That term has been kicked around quite a bit lately. A true classic is an automobile which, even at the time it was built, which would have been back in the 20s and 30s, those were the greatest years of the classic cars. These would be cars which would, the price of them would look more like the phone number. They were prohibitively expensive. This 1930 Packard would probably have been the equivalent of about 14 to 15 new Ford automobiles at the time it was built, which was kind of lean times, and your dollar was worth every bit of 100 cents then, so you could translate that into today's dollars.
And we're going to take a complete view of this 1930 Packard, front and back, because it's most unique at the rear end of this 1930 Packard. This car is worth, by the way, $130,000.
Easily.
That's about the cost of your home, right?
Easily, if that gives you any idea of what a true classic really means these days.
You know, Roger, this is just fantastic. This is a 1930 Packard, and Arlen Banning is, again, the owner. He owns Park Realty. He worked for over 2 years on this automobile to get it to the state it's in, and of course, you see the tail end. Describe that a little bit for the folks.
Well, one of the prime things that creates a classic car is handmade custom bodywork. Now, this particular car was originally sold just as a chassis and a front end, and the bodywork from the windshield on back was created by hand to the owner's particular order. And in this case, we have what we call a boat tail speedster that has a sort of a streamlined tail on it. And they're very rare, very unique these days.
Beautiful. You know, we've seen 3 cars now in a matter of minutes, and we're already up close to $200,000 worth of automobiles. And before we get through with our show today, we'll probably have seen close to a million.
Let's try something new this time.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Roger, this is a 1972 Pantera owned by Steve Pruitt of Des Moines, and another beauty.
That is correct. This car is a very unique automobile. It's a rather vanishing breed. It was originally constructed to appeal to the American power car market, and although it was designed and constructed overseas, in order to make it more palatable to the American buyer, the entire running gear and powertrain is all Ford components, standard Ford components, so they can get easy service, you know, that sort of thing locally.
This car is worth what, about $35,000?
Just about $35,000.
I think an interesting question would be that do these exhibitors, when they bring these cars into Vets Auditorium, do they actually drive them in, or do they haul them on a trailer, or how do they get them in here and clean them up?
Okay, all but the competition cars actually drove in here under their own power, and many of them are driven daily. But the competition cars, the drag cars, and the race cars, which are run on the circular tracks that we have on exhibit here, most of those were trailered in.
We might add also that hard at work on the car is Bob Brookins, who spent like 19 months rebuilding this Pantera for Steve Pruitt.
This car was heavily damaged in a collision, and there's a great deal of love and hard work went into the rebuilding of this automobile. It's had an awful lot of work go into it.
I noticed as I walk around the auditorium and view some of these fantastic customized autos that the tires on the cars themselves, do they, once they get the cars in here, do they paint the tires because they all look brand new?
Well, Dick, every exhibitor has his own secret formula that he likes to use on those tires. We have seen brake fluid, furniture polish, furniture wax. There is a compound that's made to slick up these tires. My favorite, believe it or not, is Coca-Cola.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. You can use Coca-Cola on these tires and just rub it around there. When it's dry, it makes them look like they just came out of the paper. It's great.
So you mean when I clean up my car at home, I can get a bottle of Coca-Cola and do the tires, and they look just like new, huh?
That's right.
Great idea. Let's move on and take another look at another car.
Okay.
This is a 1976 Ford pickup. It's called the Mean Mudder, and it's owned by Scott Delaney of Ankeny, Iowa. This is quite a pickup.
This is some kind of a unit, Dick. It's 4-wheel drive, and it's had a great deal of work done to the chassis so that it raises it up for high ground clearance and off-road use, that sort of thing. In fact, you climb in the driver's seat on this thing, it just about pops your ears.
I think you need
changing the altitude.
Yeah, you'd have to be a pole vaulter to get into it, right?
That's right.
Does he use these on this automobile on mud runs?
This one is more off-road than the real honest-to-goodness mud run unit. We'll probably see some mud run units a little bit later on.
And again, give us your estimation of what this pickup would cost.
This one here, the way it sets is probably in the general neighborhood of $12,000 to $15,000.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing, Roger, this car even makes me look good. I'm ready to drive this right on out.
Isn't this gorgeous?
This is a 1932 Ford Roadster owned by
Roy Long of Knoxville.
Okay, now why do they call it a Roadster? What's the definition of a Roadster?
Okay, the Roadster thing comes from the configuration of the top. You've got the drop-on windshield and the side windows, which just snap on rather than roll up like a convertible. If this had roll-up windows, then it would be called a convertible.
And we have the rumble seat, which you probably spent a lot of time in when you were younger, right?
I'm too big for that sort of thing.
Not back then, though, right? What is this car worth?
This car, I would imagine, I'm just guessing now, but I would say probably somewhere in the general $14,000 to $17,000 range.
And Roy Long has been, a little play on words here, a long-time exhibitor at Ray Farhner's auto shows, right?
He is indeed. In fact, Roy is a very prolific car builder. I believe he brought us 12 cars this weekend, and they're all excellent.
I want to tell the folks that inside here we have a AM/FM radio, which is good, and a heater, and no air conditioning. You just put down the top and roll right on out. 1932 Ford Roadster, owned by Roy Long, Knoxville, Iowa. Let's move on. Okay, what you see here, ladies and gentlemen, is not the real thing. Unfortunately, this is a replica of Catherine Bach of the Dukes of Hazzard, and we're standing right now by the General Lee, a replica of the General Lee from the show.
That's correct. Yes, this car was built by Joe Ireland, and he lives in Shawnee, Kansas, which is close to Kansas City.
And this is a 1969 Dodge Charger.
Right.
And can anyone make a replica off of, let's say, like if someone wanted to take his car and make it into the Batmobile, could they do that without the consent of, say, the ABC television network? Or
I imagine it'd be all in how they handle it after they got the replica made, you know, how they presented it.
So what we want to do is tell the moms and dads to bring the kids down, because here is a genuine replica of the General Lee from the TV production, the Dukes of Hazzard.
This is bolt for bolt, just as close as Joe Ireland could build it to the real McCoy.
Okay, let's move on.
All right.
Roger, we're looking at a 55 Ford Victoria. Now, you've heard the old joke about backseat driver, right? This really holds true for this car. The two gentlemen that own this car actually do drive the car from the back seat, right?
They do. This car has had some extensive modifications. In fact, it is customized in the style of the drag strip cars of just a few years ago. The engine has been moved back a full 3 feet, and it now sits in the passenger compartment where the front dash used to be, and the driver controls are actually located in the back seat of the car.
So that means if you have a backseat driver in this car, it would really be in the trunk.
It's the only way.
Okay, this car is owned by Mike Heinold and Doug Carmen, and they did all the work themselves, except maybe for the painting, right?
This is right. This car has an extremely powerful engine in it. It has a GMC truck supercharger on it.
500 horse, right?
It cranks out tremendous power, and with the weight shift on this, which, as I said, was the thing to do on the drag strips not too long ago, the front end of this car will come up off the ground when they shift gears.
In our view, we're looking at the car from the front. It almost gives you an impression that it was a 57 Chevy.
The two styles in those days were pretty close to, very similar. You know, the styling department's very similar.
And again, would they drive this car right into the auditorium today, or would they have it on the trailer and then...
I was talking with Mike prior to the show, and he says he does drive it around his hometown, and obviously creates a considerable stir with it.
Okay, no front bumper. What is the reasoning for that? Because the car is up high, or what?
The front end here has been extensively modified. The original suspension for the front wheels has been removed, and a solid axle has been replaced in there, and this necessitated quite a number of frame changes and so on with the underpinnings of the car. So it kind of eliminated the front bumper and that sort of thing.
Then what's the idea of driving the car from the back seat? Because the engine is so big, or why is it? What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, as we can see from the extremely large rear tires that are being used here, the general theory in the changes that were wrought with this automobile was to achieve as much weight transfer as possible on the rear wheels for maximum traction. And you notice the front wheels are extremely lightweight. The entire front end is extremely lightweight. All the weight, as much as possible, has been